In our last conversation, we looked at the math of the crossover point, that specific moment where the growth of your investments starts to outpace your own contributions. It's the moment the second you officially takes over the heavy lifting of the boulder. If you're approaching that milestone, or if you've already crossed it, you know the feeling. It's an incredible sense of relief. And your first instinct is probably to share that win. You want to tell your parents that their kid is finally set. You want to tell your friends why you're suddenly less stressed about the corporate grind. You might even want to explain to your co-workers why you aren't worried about the latest round of layoffs. But my advice is simple, and it's the hardest part of the long game. Don't tell a soul. Today, I want to talk about why silence is your greatest financial asset. We're going to look at why stealth wealth is a prerequisite for true dignity, and the 3 social wealth taxes that get triggered the second you let people see your car gauges. Protecting your momentum is just as important as building it in the first place. If you appreciate a financial perspective that values privacy and rationality over clout and flashy lifestyles, do me a favor and hit the like button. It helps me know that this community of rational peers is growing, even if we aren't talking about it loudly. Now, let's look at the first and most dangerous reason to keep your mouth shut: the projection trap. When you reach the crossover point, you've finally mastered the math, but you haven't yet mastered the psychology of the people around you. Here is the problem. Most people in your life are still at the bottom of the hill, straining every muscle to move their own boulder. When you tell them that your boulder is now rolling on its own, that your second you is earning more than your day job, they don't hear a success story. They hear a surplus. This is what I call the projection trap. To a friend struggling with credit card debt or a relative who hasn't saved a dime, your crossover point doesn't represent freedom. It represents an extra $5,000 or $10,000 a month that you don't need. Suddenly, their perception of you shifts. You aren't the friend who worked hard and lived below their means. You're the person with the unlocked kitchen cabinets. In their mind, you've stopped being a person with a plan and started being a person with a bankroll. This creates a subtle, social wealth tax. It's the expectation that you'll cover the vacation costs, the unspoken pressure to buy more expensive gifts, or the sudden arrival of business opportunities that need your seed money. They don't see that your wealth is liquid wealth, designed for your future dignity. They see it as cash that should be solving their current problems. By staying silent, you aren't being deceptive, you're being protective. You're making sure that the engine of your freedom stays under the hood, where it belongs. The comparison. The car gauges of stealth wealth. Let's look at 2 different ways this plays out in the real world. Scenario A is the person who hits the crossover point and immediately feels the need to change their lifestyle to match their new math. They upgrade to the luxury SUV, they start posting the 5-star vacation photos on social media, and they find ways to slip their number into casual conversation. They think they are celebrating their success. But what they've actually done is move their wealth from their brokerage account into their driveway and their digital feed. They look rich, but they have just handed everyone they know a straw and invited them to start sipping from their hard-earned success. They have traded their quiet momentum for a loud, fragile status that requires constant upkeep. Scenario B is the rational peer. You hit the milestone, but your car gauges stay exactly the same as they were 3 years ago. Your house still looks like a normal, modest home because you know that home equity is just wealth trapped in your kitchen cabinets. Your neighbors and co-workers think you're doing okay, but they have no idea that you are actually invincible. In this scenario, you keep every ounce of your power. You have the ability to help people on your own terms, with true intentionality and a joyful heart, rather than out of a sense of social obligation or guilt. You aren't playing the game of who has more. You are playing the game of who is more free. By keeping your gauges hidden, you ensure that your relationships remain based on who you are, not what you have. Silence gives you the one thing that money is actually supposed to buy: the total power to be left alone and the autonomy to live life on your own schedule. The solution: mastering the vague progress defense. So, if you aren't supposed to tell people you've hit the crossover point, how do you handle the inevitable money conversations? How do you keep the rational peer persona without sounding like a total mystery? The key is to move the conversation from the harvest back to the habit. When a friend asks how your portfolio is doing, or a family member asks if you're rich yet because the market had a good month, don't give them a dollar amount. Don't tell them you hit the $500,000 mark or that your dividends now cover your mortgage. Instead, use what I call vague progress. Tell them, I'm just staying the course. The market is pretty volatile right now, so I'm just sticking to the boring plan. By focusing on the boring plan, you're signaling that you're still in the trenches with them. You're talking about the boulder, not the fact that it's already rolling downhill. You aren't lying. You're just choosing to discuss the process rather than the result. This is the low-bar entry to social protection. It keeps the focus on consistency, which is something everyone can relate to, rather than your specific level of liquid wealth, which most people will misinterpret. The goal here is to maintain your social camouflage. You want your life to look like it's being fueled by your paycheck, even when we both know it's actually being fueled by the second you. This ensures that when you do decide to walk away from a toxic job or take a 6-month sabbatical, it looks like a calculated risk to the world, rather than a privileged exit. You keep your dignity, and more importantly, you keep your autonomy. The vision, the why of stealth wealth. The crossover point is your quiet power. It is the internal, unshakable knowledge that you are no longer a hostage to your 9-to-5. It is the ability to sit in a high-pressure performance review and realize that your boss's opinion of you has absolutely no impact on your ability to put food on the table or keep the lights on. That is a level of psychological safety that most people will never experience because they are too busy showing the world how well they are doing. The moment you tell the world about your success, that power starts to dissipate. You are effectively trading that deep, internal peace for a few fleeting minutes of external validation, for a wow or a congratulations from people who might not even have your best interests at heart. In the long game of life, validation is a terrible investment. It does not compound, it does not pay dividends, and it certainly does not buy your time back when you need it most. When you keep your mouth shut about your wealth, you are protecting your future self from the expectations of others. You are ensuring that your decisions remain your own, driven by your values, rather than a social script you never signed up for. True freedom is being the only person in the room who knows exactly how much you are worth. It is having a high-performance engine under the hood that could drive you across the country at a moment's notice, while everyone else on the outside simply assumes you are idling in the driveway. It is the ultimate luxury, the luxury of being underestimated while you are actually invincible. You've spent years, and for many of you, decades, pushing that heavy boulder up a very steep hill. You've sacrificed the flashy upgrades, ignored the social pressure to keep up with the neighbors, and stayed disciplined when it would have been much easier to just spend the surplus. Now that the boulder has finally reached the crest and started to pick up its own momentum on the other side, your only job is to stay out of its way. Don't let social pressure, the need for external validation, or the wealth tax of other people's expectations throw a wrench in the gears of the machine you worked so hard to build. If this perspective on quiet wealth and rational living resonated with you, I'd invite you to subscribe to the channel. We don't talk about get-rich-quick schemes or mooning stocks here. We focus on the calm, data-backed side of money and the long game of personal dignity. And if you found value in today's conversation, hitting the like button is a small, powerful way to support this community without spending a single cent. It tells the algorithm that there is an audience for honesty and long-term thinking in a world full of noise. Keep your head down, keep your wealth liquid, and keep your business to yourself. You've earned the right to be silent, and you've earned the right to be free. Stay the course. I'll see you in the next one.